All right, hello everyone. I'm just going to give people a minute to jump in, and while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands because we always want to wash our hands before we get cooking. So if you haven't done so yet, come and join me and we're going to scrub up. So when washing your hands, you just want to make sure that you wet your hands and then scrub really well for like 20 seconds. So that means you're getting in between all of your fingers, underneath those fingernails, the backs of your hands, and then even up to your wrists. So 20 seconds is like singing happy birthday twice or singing the ABCs, or you can just count to 20. All right, rinse and dry, and I think we are all set to go. So hello, thank you for joining us today. My name is Jenny. I am one of Festival Foods Mealtime Mentors and registered dietitian, and I'm so excited to be joining you in your kitchen from the Festival Foods Test Kitchen. So today we are working with Eggland's Best to bring you an excellent class about deviled eggs. So I just have a couple of housekeeping things to go through before we jump into the class, but like I mentioned at the start, hands should be washed and ready to go. We want to start with clean hands. And then each of your microphones will remain muted throughout the entire class. If you do have any questions, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, so please click on that. And then we have Mealtime Mentors Lauren and Casey on monitoring the chat. They're going to turn their cameras on and give a wave. So if you have any questions, please use that Q&A function, and then they'll be able to reply to you and then share your question with the entire class as well. So everybody will be on the same page. If you are taking this class on demand and run into any questions, you can reach out to us at askfestivaldietitians.com. All right, so let's get started. Like I said, we're making deviled egg sailboats today. So this is the perfect way to use up those leftover hard-boiled eggs. I don't know about you, but we have a bunch left over from Easter, and we definitely need a way to use them up. So I have some of my Eggland's Best hard-boiled eggs with me today. If you didn't have any leftover hard-boiled eggs, hopefully you picked up some Eggland's Best. They are on sale this week, so it's a really good time to stock up. My eggs are already peeled and ready to go. If yours aren't peeled yet, go ahead and get started on doing that while I run through all of the ingredients and equipment that we're going to need for this class. So the first thing that we're going to need, we have our eggs, of course, and then as far as like the rest of the filling ingredients, we have mayonnaise, Dijon mustard, salt and pepper, and then a fresh lemon. We're just going to put a little bit of fresh lemon juice into our filling, and then a whole bunch of options for the sails of these sailboats. So I have a cucumber, some cheese and sausage, chips. You can just kind of raid your fridge to see what you have in there. It doesn't need to be anything super special. I have some leftover red onion and leftover red bell pepper that I'm going to use as the sails as well, because this is the perfect way to clean out that fridge. As far as equipment goes, I have a knife and a cutting board. I will be using just a regular, like smaller knife today to cut those eggs in half. But if you have any little kiddos at home, I would highly recommend using a kid-safe knife, especially if they're on the younger side. I have a nylon knife with me today. This is what my son uses at home. He's 2.5 years old, and it looks like a knife, you hold it like a knife, but you can't cut yourself with it because it's nylon. So I just got this in like a 3-pack on Amazon, but any of your big box stores will carry a knife like this. You can also just use like a plastic knife or a butter knife. Those are all safe options as well. So we're going to be using the knife to cut the eggs and then to cut some of our sail toppings. I also have a large bowl to mix up my filling in. And then I have a few more things, a zip top bag. And if you have an extra set of hands in the kitchen, you won't need this, but I'm here by myself. So I grabbed a mug, and I'm just going to use this with my bag when I go to do the filling. to act as like my second set of hands. And then I also have a pair of scissors and some toothpicks, and then some forks and knives as well. So that's kind of our entire cast today. So I think we can jump on in and get started. So if you want to grab your eggs and then your knife, we're just going to cut them in half lengthwise. This is a really good step for kiddos to help with. Again, if you have that like kid-safe knife. And then, actually I'll keep them on here for now. So cut them in half and then pop out that egg yolk. So I know I've mentioned this a couple times, but we are working with Eggland's Best today. And we just love eggs in general here because they're a really, really great source of protein. But Eggland's Best eggs have an additional benefit. Not only are they a great source of protein, they also contain less cholesterol and less saturated fat than your typical egg. And then they also have lots of that heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acid in it, as well as lots of vitamin E. So it's kind of like the perfect little food. And personally, I love hard-boiled eggs, and I eat them all the time, whether it's just plain or like on a salad. I really like deviled eggs as a snack. So go ahead and let us know what your favorite way to enjoy hard-boiled eggs is. I just cooked these eggs today in a pot. I put the eggs into like cold water, brought it to a boil, and then once it was at a boil, I I covered the pot and just let it sit for 12 minutes. And the eggs are perfect. There's like no green ring around it. We do have a couple YouTube videos on how to cook the perfect hard-boiled egg in either like a pressure cooker or on the stovetop. But you can also cook it in an air fryer if you have one of those on hand. So I've done that a few times at home and it's always really fun. You just cook it at like 250 for, let me just check my notes, 250 for 13 to 17 minutes, depending on how done you want your eggs. And if you overcook it, it's not a huge deal, especially if you're making deviled eggs, because no one's going to be able to tell that you have that green ring around your yolk. All right. So I've got, all of my egg yolks into my bowl here. So I'm going to go ahead now and get the rest of my filling ingredients into the bowl. So we need a 1/4 cup of mayo. And 2 teaspoons of Dijon. I'm going to give this a shake just in case there's a little water sitting at the top. So 1 and 2. And this is, again, like a great thing for kids to help with. You can teach them about measurements, let them stir, dump things into the bowl. And then I do need 2 teaspoons of fresh lemon juice as well. So let me squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in here, 1 and 2. And then the last step is to season this with salt and pepper. And I know from testing this that I don't really need any additional salt in this. It's already pretty salty on its own. So I will just season it with a little bit of pepper. The mustard in the filling has quite a bit of salt in it, so I didn't think that it really needed additional salt, but definitely taste it. And if you would like it a little saltier, then go ahead and sprinkle some in. So all of this is to your taste. All right, just gonna mash this. I want this to be pretty smooth because we're going to be piping it out of our zip top bag. So if there are any like larger pieces in it, it will be a little harder to squeeze out. So I don't know if you noticed, but I switched to a fork for this mashing step because you can't really mash with a spoon. You could also use like a small whisk. That would work well too. And one thing that I like to remind my son when we're in the kitchen is when you're doing any like stirring or mashing, I encourage him to, hold the utensil in the same hand that he would like color with, and then use his other hand to hold the bowl so it's not sliding all over the counters. We don't want it falling off the counter and onto the floor, making a huge mess. So hang on to that bowl. Okay, this looks pretty smooth to me. If your filling doesn't look quite right, you can feel free to adjust it with like some more mayo or some more lemon juice or some more mustard. Just really customize it to what you would like. All right, so next I'm going to go ahead and get this filling into my zip top bag. So like I had mentioned, I don't have a second set of hands to help me hold the bag open, but if you do have one person hold the bag open, the other person can scoop the filling in. I'm by myself, so I'm going to go ahead and put the bag into the mug and just pull the bag over like the lip of the mug. So then I have this nice big opening for me to put my filling in. If you have multiple people in your home who would like to fill up the eggs, feel free to split this filling into like 2 bags or 3 bags, 4 bags, depending on how many people you have at home who want to do this. It's a great job for everyone to get involved in. Or if you would like, you could just simply spoon this filling like from the bowl into the egg. It's just a little messier that way. And I personally think it's more fun to squeeze something out of a bag. All right. So now that the filling is in my bag, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to squeeze it all towards one corner, like the bottom right corner of this bag, because that's the corner I'll be piping out of, and then get out as much air as possible and seal it all up. And next, I'm going to cut a small hole into the corner. I'm saying small because you can always make a hole bigger, but you can't make it any smaller if you accidentally cut it too big. So once that hole is cut, we can go ahead and squeeze our filling into the egg. So if you're finding that the filling's not really coming out, then cut your hole just a little bit bigger. But it looks like mine is doing just fine. And as I'm filling this, I am filling it like a little more than just not halfway, just like having it mound a little bit, because we did add some mayo and mustard, but we don't want to overfill it, because if you overfill the first few, then you won't have enough filling for your last few eggs. So try to distribute it as evenly as you can. And like I mentioned before, this is a really nice step for the kiddos to get involved in, because there's nothing sharp involved. All right, so that looks pretty good. And now that we have that done, it's time to make our sails. So I'm actually going to shift a few of these onto my serving platter so I have some room on my cutting board. If you're at home and you left all your eggs on the cutting board, feel free to just grab another cutting board. I don't have one handy, so I'm going to move some around. All right. And now we are at our toppings. So we have a lot of different options. Hopefully you could gather some from your kitchen. I'm going to start with the easiest one, which is probably the tortilla chip. So find yourself a chip, and I like the little triangle pieces that aren't too big. So you can see this one is pretty big, it would be a very large and funny sail for a sailboat. If you find that to be too big, you can break it off into a smaller piece or just find like a smaller broken chip and just simply stick it into your egg yolk. So really, really easy with the tortilla chips. If you want something that involves a little bit of cutting, which I think most kiddos would enjoy doing a little extra work, you have a whole bunch of options. So I had mentioned at the beginning that I had a random piece of onion in the fridge, so we're going to use that up. It's already cut in half. I'm going to go ahead and peel back that papery skin and get rid of that. And now I'm just going to cut like a little wedge of it. So the onion is pretty strong in flavor. I would suggest using like a smaller piece versus a larger piece. So when you cut it into like thin strips, you can peel it apart into several different pieces. So I would suggest just using like 1 or 2 pieces so you aren't overwhelmed by too much onion. And then again, simply just put it into your egg. And so you're just kind of repeating that with all of your different toppings. I have a little hunk of red pepper. This one's kind of cut into a bunch of different pieces. Let's see. Here's a pretty large piece. So with this piece of pepper, I'm going to cut it into like a little triangle. So it's more like a sail shape. Got a little sail here. And get that into my sailboat, and I can just keep going down and cutting it into different little triangle shapes. So again, feel free to use like whatever veggies you have on hand. There's really no right way to do this. I have some cheese slices. If you have a brick of cheese, that's perfect. If you have the square slices, that also works. I happen to have slices of provolone, so it's large circle. I'm going to go ahead and cut this into wedges. So like a little triangle, and again, just stick it into my egg. And if your ingredients aren't holding, you can use a toothpick. I did have toothpicks ready as well, just in case. But it looks like they're standing up just fine. And the nice thing about cheese is, especially like the pre-sliced cheese, is it's really soft, so it's easy for the whole family to kind of cut that up into different shapes. You don't have to worry so much about like a knife slipping. And let's see, cucumber. So the cucumber, I'm going to try something new, and I just cut the end off and then cut it in half because it was kind of large. I'm going to cut this into like a thin ribbon. A veggie peeler would also work for this. And then I'm going to take one of the toothpicks and just kind of like thread it through so it forms a little sail. Oops, those are awful. And get that into my egg here as well. And one thing that I did last time I made these, if you don't have any toothpicks on hand, but if you do have like shredded carrots, these carrots are also really good and they can function as like a toothpick as well, and then you can eat the whole thing. You don't have to worry about pulling out that toothpick. Another thing you could do with a cucumber, if you don't want to cut it into like the thin ribbon, is to simply cut it into coins. And then you can cut the coins into wedges, much like I did with the provolone cheese. So with this, I think I'll cut it into like thirds again to kind of get those triangle shapes. And then just slightly smaller sails, but they still work. So go raid your fridge, see what you have on hand, and then go in and enjoy your snack. I love this because it's really easy to modify for all sorts of diets. If you need to eat gluten-free, all of these things are naturally gluten-free. Double check your tortilla chips to make sure that they are. If you grab like a sausage to use, make sure that that's gluten-free as well. If you're dairy-free, you can simply just omit the cheese or pick a dairy-free cheese to use. We have a huge selection in our natural department. And if you don't want to eat meat, just don't use the sausage. So the sausage you would treat the same way as like the cucumber coins and just cut it into wedges or like sail shapes. So that's everything that I have for you today. I'm going to let you all go and enjoy your deviled egg sailboat snacks. Thank you so much for joining today. Hope you had fun and learned a few tips and tricks along the way. Whether you're taking this class live or on demand, you will receive a survey in your email. So please fill that out so that we can improve these classes for you in the future. And then as a thank you, we will be picking 3 respondents from the live class to receive a gift basket from our friends at Eggland's Best. So thank you all so much for joining. If you want to be the first to know about upcoming classes, definitely follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Fest Foods. You can also sign up for our Appetite email. We'll include information to upcoming classes in there as well. You can sign up by texting Appetite to 78402 or going to festfoods.com/appetite. And then if you want more meal ideas, you can visit our Meal Ideas site at festfoods.com/meals. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.